So the question, Sylvia, Araceli, and Freddy, I will ask at the end, okay? So, Freddy Ortiz Nishihara is a lawyer from UNMSM, lead trainer in conciliation since 2000 to the present in Peru, advisor to the mediation program of the municipality of Riobamba and the National Directorate of the Indigenous Peoples Ecuador, speaker and the presenter in Argentina, Buenos Aires, South, postgraduate in mediation and conciliation from the University of Business and Social Science in Buenos Aires, Latin America, school at the University of Buenos Aires, doctor, professor from University conflict resolution from the University of Uppsala, Sweden, master degree in international relations from the Andean University Simón Bolívar, and really he's correspondent for the radio Voices and Words Opening Borders for Peace. I want to truly present dear Professor Freddy, share your expertise and make a huge conclusion to the final day number 2 of the conference, Peace, Architecture, Peace in a New Global Era. Thank you. Stage is yours.
Thank you very much. I want to congratulate to all the speakers which presented here all their points of view. I suppose that all of them were very interesting for our formation as mediators or conciliators. And really, well, we are continuing with this path of improving the ways of resolution, the best ways of resolution, which are mediation, conciliation, and other kind of ways of conflict resolution without the interference of the justice, the tribunals, and otras similares. Quiero decir en español que realmente deseo felicitar a todos los que han participado. Sus conferencias, sus temas han sido interesantes. Creo que debemos continuar en ese camino de construcción de la paz y sobre todo de mejora, porque el intercambio de experiencias nos fortalece, nos hace sentir mejor y eso es muy importante, ¿no? I want to say too that I'm going to take another step. I'm going to speak another step in other matter that I was programmed before, because diplomacy is a very important, very interesting matter. It's very interesting. But now I'm going to speak briefly, if you permit me, on relation to a case of conflict, very, very sorry, which is happening now in these moments in Africa, between Asia and Africa, in Palestine. I want to express that it causes very sorrow to all the humanity, and it's a point of view of mine that I want to share with you. Quiero hablar sobre un punto muy importante brevemente sobre Palestina, el conflicto de Palestina, que bueno, no está vinculado al tema de la diplomacia, el tema que fui programado, pero que bueno, realmente es importante tratarlo porque ahora tenemos frente a nosotros una cruda y cruel realidad que debe ser explicada desde un punto de vista global, desde un punto de vista diplomático. Entonces voy a presentar, y les pido mil disculpas si lo hago mal, porque he estado mal de salud con diabetes, y la diabetes me ha mantenido paralizado estos últimos días. I have diabetes and I have been very sick these days. Excuse me. Moreover, I lost my account in LinkedIn. Somebody hacked my account. 20 years of work. It's very sorry to lose 20 years of work, academic work, background, which is in LinkedIn. Es doloroso perder una cuenta de LinkedIn que has trabajado 20 años, que tiene materiales, que tiene fotos, que tiene testimonios, porque un pirata entró a LinkedIn y me saboteó, me destruyó. He quedado profundamente conmocionado porque videos, textos, artículos, presentaciones se perdieron. Bueno, pero yo voy a tocar el tema, a ver, voy a compartir pantalla, entonces voy a pedir que me permitan compartir. I'm going to share, yes, this is the matter, yes, this month, but let's start here. And well, I'm going to speak today about Palestine. I ask you to excuse me if you have another point of view. Les pido que me disculpen si tienen otro punto de vista, pero trato de ser un puente entre dos mundos para mejorar nuestra calidad de vida y sobre todo ser mejores seres humanos. Los marcos y la mediación orientados a la construcción del diálogo, los consensos y la convivencia en tiempos complejos, ¿no? Alternative means of conflict resolutions and mediation, contributions of the mark to the construction of dialogue, consensus and coexistence in complex times. Podemos ver en esta figura muy lamentable que a veces las formas de comunicación de las que muchos han hablado anteriormente muestran internamente al ser humano su expresión externa. This picture shows which you can't deny with the words. When you try to solve a conflict, you must start watching the bodies, the movements, the actions of the people. Not only words, as somebody said before my intervention. The words are vain. The words are useless when you do something which is contrary to the right, to the human rights, Las palabras son vacías cuando tú hablas bonito, dices algo bonito y tú estás haciendo cosas que no son correctas, acordes con lo que tú quieres expresar. En esta fotografía lo vemos, ¿verdad? Bueno, acá están algunos datos míos, pero vamos a ver, el tema de la disertación era, como les digo, un análisis del conflicto en Palestina. Analysis of the conflict in Palestine. We can see in these pictures many pictures which were taken since 1948 until now. Estas imágenes fueron tomadas desde 1948 cuando comenzó lo que los árabes llaman Nakba, when it started to call it Nakba by the Palestine, the time of suffering, when they give the welcome to the new migrants coming from Europe to Palestine, and how these new migrants started a new life, but created a new image, putting to the Arabs, and particularly to the Palestinians, as people without culture, people we do not deserve to live in peace, violent people. La historia que dijeron los inmigrantes europeos era de que los palestinos eran violentos, eran gente incivilizada, que los desiertos era lo único que cubrían esas zonas y la prensa se hizo eco de ello, y la historia que tenemos es que los bárbaros árabes atacaban a los migrantes civilizados y lo hacían sin ningún motivo. Pero ahora sabemos que había cultivos, que había tierras, que había casas, que había gente viviendo ahí. And we know that there were people, there were houses, there were cities, not only deserts as the Israelis say now. There was a culture, a living culture there in that place of the world, and the information that they transmitted was fake. La información que transmitieron es falsa, porque ahora vemos la realidad cuando los canales de comunicación se han abierto de lo que realmente es Palestina. Yo escucho todos los días al padre Gabriel Romanelli, que es argentino, y que habla sobre estos hechos y nos cuenta que los árabes palestinos no son bestias, no son criminales, no son terroristas, son seres humanos como nosotros, y dos monjas peruanas que trabajan también allí con él. And now every day I listen to Padre Gabriel Romanelli in his program, who speaks on relation to Palestine's real situation of the human being living in his parish. And there are two sisters, Peruvian sisters, which work with he do in that place, and they tell us the truth about the humanity of Palestine people. They are not animals, as some some officials of Israel said sometime. No son animales, como dijeron algunos funcionarios de Israel alguna vez. They are human beings, like ourselves, like you, like me. Son seres humanos como tú, como yo, y no merecen ser tratados de esta manera. Acá hay videos, no los voy a poder pasar en esta oportunidad, pero ustedes han visto todo lo suficiente, creo, sobre la guerra. Here are links to videos that you have saw now about this war, and you know what's happening really in Palestine. Let's remember to Johann Galtung, one of the fathers of the peace, the mediation fathers. Empathy without violence, with creativity, a process that never ends. La empatía, nosotros entendemos como paz a la capacidad de transformar a los conflictos con empatía, sin violencia, con creatividad, un proceso que nunca se acaba. Sí, o sea, la empatía no solamente es, digamos, transformar con las palabras, como dije antes, sino se trata de que entendamos la paz como la capacidad de transformar los conflictos sin violencia, con creatividad, un proceso que nunca se acaba. We understand peace as the capacity to change the conflicts with empathy, without violence, with creativity, a process which never ends. That's really what we want to say. And Desmond Tutu, the bishop, the South African bishop, say something very important too when we speak of this kind of violence. The neutrality, when you face a case of violence, is not peace. It's only to collaborate with the silence, accomplish silence of the people who uses violence, and that is what they need for to continue their attacks. La neutralidad ante un caso de violencia no es paz, es justamente colaborar con el silencio cómplice que los agresores necesitan para seguir atacando. Obviamente que sí. Y bueno, la visión de negociación de Johann Galtung sobre la violencia se basaba en 2 puntos. El control político israelí está en el punto de arriba. The political, Johann Galtung spoke on this conflict and made a very important and interesting analysis. He said the next, first we have up the political control of the Israeli government, and down we have the political control of Arabs. Now which is happening, this was written and said by Johann Galtung more than 30 years ago, almost 30 years ago, and it's really a real situation. It's a real situation. Johann Galtung, adelantándose a su tiempo, dijo pues que el control político israelí está en la cúspide y lo que se tiene es tener el dominio sobre el control político árabe, del mundo árabe. Es el sionismo, la doctrina que busca que impere esta forma de diálogo, de comunicación, de interrelación entre 2 partes, y no me parece correcto ni justo, ¿no? Here we can see this kind of relation that the Zionism is trying to establish in the relation between not the Jews. We will speak a group of the Jews, which are the Zionist government, and the Arab world. It's not horizontal, it's a way of domination on one over the others. Well, let's try to understand the violence and the mediation in a conflict. Yes, if we speak of Galtung and other people who gave us concepts on violence and conflicts, it's very special to understand that in a conflict, if you want to solve a conflict, it must be equality between the parts. And the solution should be to negotiate and mediate with the heart, showing all your feelings, not only the words, until you find the best option. But if you use violence, you can see that there is not horizontality, there is no way for to solve the conflict. You can see that the danger is on the way, because there are going to be victims, and there is going to reborn once again a new kind of aggression. Every day is going to be born a new kind of aggressor, a new kind of terrorist, because we are not repairing. We are not doing the healing of the conflict. That is which is happening in Palestine. That is happening in Palestine when we see that generation and generation passes, but the conflict never ends. Never we're going to end, because we must understand, if we want to solve the conflicts, we must go to the roots of the conflicts. The roots of the conflicts are on the goodwill, and the real will is the sincere will of the people for to try to find a way for to try to solve really the conflict. We have now that in Palestine there is use of violence, direct violence. You can see the attitudes, and the cultural violence which is used by the Zionists, not Jews, as I said before, because we must understand this as a way of to act from a group of persons. Not all the Jews is a group of Jews, and the basis is structural. We can see the nature roots are structural, and we need to understand that with bad behavior, with bad comprehension of the other, with no understanding of the other in the same level, we are not going to solve really the conflict. We are going to try to negotiate, but it's a failed negotiation, because the real negotiation is when you show to the other what is your sincere point of view about the way for to really solve the conflict, since one point which makes two sides happier than before, which solves the conflicts of both sides, not the conflict of one side. This is which you must understand. But if we use violence, we are not going to have good results. This is going to be bad. And the violence, direct violence, who's just about this matter, about this kind of violence, Johann Galtung said that there are 4 kinds of violence. First, that you use when you use the physical force, the direct violence. Second, the cultural violence, when you don't permit the others to express themselves as they should like to express. And then we have the structural violence, when you see the roots of the conflict is in the societies and the political points of view, which are not equals for everybody. But if you see outside, it's most visible the direct violence, but you can see the cultural violence or the structural violence or the root violence, because this is down. No podemos entender quizás a veces como explicación de la violencia directa que hay una violencia cultural, que hay una violencia estructural que determina que estalle este conflicto externamente. Pero eso se forma en las mentes y en los corazones de los seres humanos. This kind of violence, which we don't see invisible violence, is born inside the hearts and minds of the person, the cultural and structural violence. Well, we must say, as mediator and conciliators, that Israel is acting in the same way, not only since 2023. We can see that this has happened since 1948. Tenemos que señalar que realmente pues esta violencia no nació en 2023, sino que se proyecta antes de 2023, ¿no? Entonces, hay casos en los que no se puede mediar, pero sin embargo, en el caso de Palestina e Israel, la violencia, pese a haber violencia, se trató de mediar. In the case of Palestine and Israel, some people tried to mediate, Qatar and Egypt, but we know that when there is violence, maybe it's impossible to mediate. But anyway, they try to do their best mediating in this conflict, but we can see when one of the sides doesn't have the goodwill for to solve the conflicts, we can get any kind of result. No podemos conseguir ningún tipo de resultado cuando una de las partes no tiene sinceridad y no quiere negociar, ¿no? Entonces los antecedentes sabemos que vienen desde antes, ¿no? El desequilibrio de poder, ¿no? En realidad hay un liderazgo negativo, ellos tienen una autoestima alta, ¿no? Pero se basan en la coerción, en la intimidación y se apoyan en los grupos para crear comportamientos antisociales. When we see to the aggressor, we can see that inside them there is a very, very ugly way of action. There is no empathy. There is a negative leadership. They use intimidation and to try to act in a way that only their own interests are valuable. The other side interests are not important, don't serve. That is the point of view of the narrative that Israel has created since 1948 until now. And yes, we could see before that many times they try to mediate at the United States or other countries try to mediate since Madrid in 1991, then Madrid in Oslo, in Paris, Sharm el-Sheikh, Telnet. They try to make a supposed peace, but finally we can find if there is not a good will for to solve the conflict really since the root, there are not going to be good results, and the conflict is going to continue. Si no hay una real voluntad de solucionar el conflicto, si no hay una real voluntad de tratar al otro como nos gustaría que nos traten, no vamos a resolver el conflicto. Pese a que han habido varios intentos, no se ha logrado nada. Lamentamos mucho que no se haya logrado nada, ¿no? Entonces, la información difundida que no ayuda a resolver el conflicto. La sociedad ignora que los palestinos no tienen ni ejército ni derecho a tener armas, ni tanques, ni aviones, ni siquiera helicópteros, que suponen que hay un desequilibrio entre los asesinos, sin conocer que en la última operación a gran escala en la Franja de Gaza, ¿cuánto se ha invertido? Bueno, we must understand that if we see the conflict between the two sides, we must see that one of them has more power than the other, because the Palestinians don't have tanks, don't have planes, don't have arms, weapons that the others have, and they don't have an army. Since 2012, many universities made studies, and many of them ignored the differences between the two sides. But most of them say the same about the role that Israel shows to the world, and Palestine as the victim. The United States is sorry to say, but the United States, the father or the master of, we suppose the master of the legal systems in the world, who is helping the aggressor to Israel to manipulate the information. It's inside. The United States manipulates information, and this creates an atmosphere of disinformation. The people see only what is happening, but they don't do nothing in relation to what is happening. Nos hemos convertido en seres que solamente vemos y no actuamos frente a realidades. Parece que nos hubiéramos convertido en seres de piedra, que no tenemos sentimientos, y los Estados Unidos, con sus sistemas de comunicación, han influido tanto en ver a las partes que uno es un grupo que vive sin armas, bueno, que tiene armas básicas, pero no tiene tanques, no tiene ejército, no tiene aviones, no tiene helicópteros, y está resistiendo, y nos los presenta como terrorista. But who is terrorist? Terrorist is who defends his right to life. Is that a terrorist? Or is terrorist who takes the land of the other, who commits crimes against humanity in relation to others? who kills children, who bombs day and night without previous advice, with previous communication to the other. Who is the terrorist? The terrorist, we must define where the word terrorist, the vowel, what does it mean terrorist? And we must understand what is la diferencia de lo que está pasando. ¿Quién es terrorista? Los que atacan y toman la tierra ajena, los que aterrorizan a la población civil, matan niños, o los que se defienden con lo poco que tienen para defender sus tierras. Nosotros podríamos ver en la historia de la humanidad que siempre se ha justificado la autodefensa. In the human history, we always have understood and learned that self-defense of the country is permitted as a right for all the countries without borders. And there are myths created because the publicity of the West in relation to Israel. First, they say that Israel is number one in army, it has a superiority. They say that the Israelis changed a desert in a land of Eden, a paradise, because before they came to Palestine, there were only arid lands, there was no life. And the other point that says that the Jews, the people Jews, have the right, the God's right, the God given by the right given by God to live in a land which during 2,000 years was only occupied by Palestinians, by Arabs, which during 2,000 years was were Arab lands, was an Arab territory, Palestine, but the communications way of systems, the communication systems has showed us Israel as the real democracy, and has showed us that the Arabs are not democrats, and any cleansing of Palestinians is only to fight against terrorism, and that is not legal. That is a lie. That is all that the system of communications are showing us now. Debemos decir que la prensa nos ha informado mal, diciéndonos que los terroristas son los palestinos, que ellos violan, que ellos matan, que los judíos, en realidad los sionistas, encontraron un territorio árido de gente salvaje, cuando no es así. Y bueno, realmente la mitología que crearon acerca de los israelíes se está deshaciendo poco a poco, y ellos necesitaban sobrevivir porque ya Mario Vargas Llosa lo dijo antes. The Peruvian writer Mario Vargas Llosa once made a comment on this situation, and he said, Gaza is horrific, there are no rights for no one. I don't imagine how that person can live. I don't imagine. That is not live. That is a concentration field. I don't imagine why Israel is doing this to the Arab people. It's a jailhouse in the desert. This was said by Mario Vargas Llosa, a famous Peruvian writer. Mario Vargas Llosa lo dijo, ¿no? Que realmente no entendía cómo podían vivir encarcelados en Gaza, no podían tener acceso al océano para bañarse, los ametrallaban, no podían salir, estaban en un campo de concentración. Y era lógico, según el experimento que hacen los científicos, si metes a las ratas en una caja y les pinchas todos los días, ¿qué resultado vas a tener? Bueno, que haya violencia, ¿no? Bueno, realmente, we are so far away from the Arab Spring, as the presidents of the United States have said. We are very far away from any kind of peace, since my point of view. This is the third or fourth uprising of Palestinians against Israel. The first was against the Ottoman Empire. The second was against the colonialism that the English put there, and this is the third time which the Palestinians must to fight by their freedom. Esta es la tercera oportunidad en la que los palestinos tienen que resistir por su independencia, por su libertad. Antes lo hicieron primeramente como una revuelta contra el imperio turco, luego contra el neocolonialismo inglés occidental y ahora contra Israel, ¿no? Lo dice Johann Galtung. Bueno, ways in which we could solve this conflict. Are there ways to solve this conflict? This is a question, very good question. Maybe we couldn't say that there is no way to solve this conflict. It's very, very difficult. It's a very difficult conflict. But Galtung said which the first that we must to do is to put end to the military occupation of Israel from the territory of the Palestinian, to end the military occupation from Israel of the territories, Palestinian territories. That occupation started in 1967. There are more than 40 years. After that, we can see that the roots of the conflict are not only in 1967, the roots of the conflicts are in the Balfour Statement in 1917, when a group of persons decided creation of the state of Israel for the Jews. But we know that this declaration, this good declaration, is not respected by the Israeli government, because in the times of Galtung analysis, 50% of the land was in hands of the Zionist Israelis. But now we have that more than 70% of the territory is in hands of the Israelis, Zionists, and the rest is keeping by the Palestinian Authority and Hamas. But we must say, what do they want after this war? If the Palestinian lost all his territory, I only have almost 30% of the original lands now. Maybe they want to disappear to final this conflict with ethnic cleansing and the missing of all the Palestinians on the earth. They want to end in this way. Quieren acabar con los palestinos, matándolos y sacándolos de este mundo. Yo me pregunto cuál es la forma de solucionar el conflicto, pero él decía que teníamos que tratar de resolver esto reconociendo que el 55% del territorio ya tenía que ser aceptado, que le corresponde a Israel. Y el saldo era para Palestina, el 45%. Pero ahora tenemos que el 70% del territorio está en manos de Israel y solo el 30% en manos de Palestina. ¿Y cómo lo quieren terminar los israelíes? Yo digo, ¿hasta dónde van a llegar? ¿No? Creo que es justo negociar, pero negociar tratando de resolver el conflicto, no matando, ¿no? Bueno, acá hay un ensayo que hice, un ejercicio. Here's an exercise to try to speak or to solve this conflict, but it's not there is not enough time to make this exercise. We are going to pass this. Finally, we say to all the persons with a good heart, which want the peace, we really love the peace with the heart. Let's pray by the real peace. Let's pray by the real peace with justice. What is the real model of peace? As Galtung said once, when somebody interviewed him, he said the next when they asked, "What do you think about the real peace? What we need to have to get there to the real peace between Israel and Palestine?" Yes, if you solve the conflict, the violence is going to end. It's going to have to diminish. It's going to finish. The violence is going to finish. Not only physical violence, and not only physical violence. We must to look inside the person, the feelings, the hate which is inside the person, which is going to start to disappear. It must to start inside. We must try that the people cooperate between themselves, and we must show the model of Peru, Ecuador and Peru. This change came immediately. And briefly I'm going to explain that I'm so sorry because our bad leaders, we kept a conflict, Ecuador and Peru, during almost 100 years. But in the 1990s, this conflict was solved, and now we can understand and see as brothers and really have solved this conflict since the deep of our heart. That is the model that Johann Galtung was suggesting when he was still alive to Palestine and Israel, to try the conflict since the deep of the heart, since inside the persons, not to create hate inside the persons. The educative system in Israel is for to learn hate, to hate the Arabs, is for to teach hate, how to hate best to the Arabs or to the Palestinians. And the first thing we must do is to try to make that the peace born, the real peace borns in our hearts, for to make a real reality. That is all I want to say. I want to thank you very much by your attention. I'm going to finish sharing, and excuse me if I do. Well, okay. Stop sharing.
Thank you very much,
So,
Professor. Thank you very much.
Excuse me so much.
Actually, answering to my question, your sentences, you just answered to my question because I wanted to ask what the end, how we can come to the peace. So you already answered it. It's easy when you have a will and you want to come to the peace. This is simple, and moral of these stories about peace, actually they are more simple, as the human beings are doing complicated lives. Life is so hard. The human beings are doing life is complicated. And I want to move to the question to Sylvia. And I will ask in English, and I will ask Araceli to translate. Sylvia, how do you think, how do we endure marginalizing voices are heard in legal frameworks or for peace building?
Silvita, ¿cómo garantizamos que las voces marginadas sean escuchadas en los marcos legales para la construcción de la paz?
Arita, te doy alguna de las respuestas, la ubicás también en inglés en el chat, ¿cómo querés que hagamos?
Respóndele la pregunta y yo le copio al chat.
Ok, en algunos de nuestros diseños y en nuestros principios de las políticas públicas, la respuesta a la accesibilidad, se usa mucho la palabra acceso a justicia, a la justicia, y accesibilidad quiere decir, seguramente Freddy también me acompaña en ese sentido, sí. Cuanto más cercano y temprano será atendible aquello que necesiten, caminar el territorio y ofrecer espacios y lugares yendo a la gente y no esperando que la gente venga, eso hace al sentido y es únicamente estableciendo redes colaborativas interinstitucionales trabajando en corresponsabilidad. Pero también me importa mucho decir en la pregunta de Christine, que es muy importante, también otros me hicieron algunas preguntas que me han mandado Berchan y Pablo Ortega también. Yo creo que reconocer la vulnerabilidad y ver cómo se la define es un punto de partida. No es una condición individual, hay que ver cómo uno lo ve, ¿no es cierto? Es un entramado social, cultural, económico, lo hemos estado escuchando de nuestros compañeros, pero atenderla significa, Christine, mirar las desigualdades, género, edad, pobreza, etnia, discapacidad, migración, etc. Todo lo que condiciona la vida de las personas. Así que cultura del cuidado con protección colectiva. Gracias. Gracias por tu pregunta, por the question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I understood. Gracias, Silvia. It was really full answering question. Answer on the question. So I will move to Arita because we are running out of time. And Arita will have a really interesting question from me. Can transitional justice, because your topic is also about justice, law, and peace, can transitional justice address the needs of victims without destabilizing fragile peace agreements? How do you think?
Gracias, Cristina. La pregunta, podríamos decir que sí se puede desestabilizar directamente el tema de los acuerdos en los acuerdos más que todo que son frágiles, pero todo depende del diseño y la secuencia con la que se lo está realizando. También podemos ver que la evidencia muestra que la justicia tradicional puede beneficiar a las víctimas y consolidando directamente con la paz. Cuando esto se combina, la justicia simbólica en temas de reconocimiento, verdad y reparaciones como medidas pragmáticas que pueden reducir directamente el riesgo de violencia. Por ejemplo, pueden ser en eventos participativos, en amnistías, en condicionados directamente en mecanismos mixtos. Sin embargo, los mecanismos puros y aplicados forman una parte abrupta dentro de lo que puede manifestarse. También tienen que alimentar directamente el tema de reacción entre los actores armados y poner los riesgos de los acuerdos frágiles.
Thank you very much. Gracias, Araceli. I see a translation. So I would like to ask you, switch on cameras. We will make a picture and thank you.
Sí, ok. Ahorita.
Great. So we have a picture. Gracias. Thank you very much. I want to wish you good day. For me, it's good night. It's almost 10 o'clock. So I will just say that day 2 went amazing. All amazing stories. We went from theory to practice. And I'm excited. We did IAMPE team, and we are mostly here IAMPE team. We left only IAMPE team now here. I want to say thank you to each of you because you are really unique, and I'm honored to have so brilliant minds in our association. Gracias.
Gracias, muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias a todos. Muchas gracias, Freddy, Silvita.
Saludos, muchas gracias a todos. Un fuerte abrazo. Thank you very much.
See you tomorrow. And tomorrow we have an interesting day. And tomorrow we'll have another 2 from Latin America, from Ecuador, Cuba, and from Mexico. We will see Brenda tomorrow. And Rainer, yes, a professor. So, Araceli, you have to. Yes. And it will be interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.